You are listening to a Romecast with Neil Kramer.
Good Lord. I say, good heavens, absolutely.
Yeah, we don't want to do anything to scare your children. That's the last thing we want to do. We don't want to scare anybody.
And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up for ever and ever. And they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. I'm in a very unusual location today. A disused military base on the edge of the Pacific in northwest Washington. And if you can hear motors in the distance, maybe you can, they are ships coming in and out of port. When we begin our lives, it appears that we are randomly subject to the nature and temperament of the man and woman who made us. Their mental and emotional state heavily influences us. Their material circumstances, their traditions, their outlook, their warmth, their education, their home, their choice of schooling. And then, when you are 17, 18, 19, 20, something like that, you are out of it. You are free. You can do whatever you wish. What I have come to understand is that if you had difficult circumstances in those first 20 years, then you chose them. You selected those parents, that home, those traditions, those attitudes, so you could learn from them. Like an anthropologist learns by living with the tribe, becoming part of the tribe, doing the things that they do, and being up to his neck in it. And that is the only way to learn about human conundrums and solutions. There is no good fortune, no ill fortune. There is no such thing as privilege, no accidents, no chance of any kind. We determined, before we even came into the earth realm, precisely what we were going to experience. And we arrived at exactly the right moment, with exactly the right people. A set of circumstances supremely fitting to kindle our learning, to force us to see what is real and what is unreal. Through suffering, through despondence, through knowledge, through courage. Many of us pushed to the brink of oblivion. It seems we often foist a crisis upon ourselves in order to obligate our own inner growth, to compel the craft of understanding, the art of transcending, to learn how to rise above the situation we found ourselves in. So whatever people and circumstances were around you at the beginning, they were yours by design. Did they show you what you needed to see? Did you understand that your particular circumstances are a variation of a primal archetypal pattern that millions of others share just like you? Some people miss these invaluable gifts of learning. They see the suffering as something bad that wasn't meant to happen. They miss the teaching when they take things personally. We are apt to feel somehow ill-fated, abused, neglected, hard done by. Yet, in a manner of speaking, to take anything in life personally is to misconceive what is happening at the root level. It is a flawed perception to think that the world is doing anything to you. It is not. It's the other way around. And as I say this, and the rain continues to fall around me, 3 beautiful deers have come close to look at me. Quite used to humans they are here. You are free to roam wherever you please, to do whatever is good, to be with wonderful people, to find deep communion with other pilgrims, to encounter the mystery. You are master, mistress of your own reality. Your mind, when moving in righteous equilibrium, channels the will of God. Your hands bring divine treasures to whatever they touch. Your footsteps leave a guiding light for everyone who ever follows in them for 1,000 years. In harmony, you are at total liberty. Every day, we must hold the signal. Effort is required. Deep poisons are drawn out slowly. Though high-caliber men and women, other devout pilgrims on the path, will aid us on our journey, heal us, inspire us, protect us. It is only in gathering that we find our proper atmosphere in this respect. The home signal that gives us the strength to refine, to achieve truth and fulfillment in our experiences. When we are alone too much, we forget, we drift. We lose sight of the path and its treasures, and instead we seek to divert ourselves with essentially empty activities, doing things, filling the time with things that keep mind, heart, body engaged sufficiently to block out the horror of the pointlessness. You can hear the sound changing as I walk. Through the corridors, outside, inside. It's all open. Of course, the glass and wood have all largely disappeared. There is just stone and metal here now. And on the floor, would you believe, are the burnt remnants of somebody's Ouija board. Somebody has attempted to contact spirits in another realm. I wonder what happened to these people. I bet they had a fun night. Probably scared themselves silly and laughed and learned. A good memory. There are many people on Earth who are simply here to get better stuff and be more comfortable. There's nothing wrong with that. It's their business. Most people, I would say, are probably doing something along those lines. Yet even so, they're always, in a way, on the run from the creeping spectre of pointlessness. The rising dread that it all might be without purpose. No point. And even the men and women of spirit, those who live in conscious contact with their world, the willing, the disciples of the great mystery, they feel it too. The cloud of pointlessness floats over all our heads from time to time. Especially with spiritual people, there is sometimes a kind of hidden guilt in feeling moments, hours, days, weeks of apathy. There may be a point, and yet we do not care. We sense the distant futility, a hollowness, some strange lethargy woven into the unreality of life. A hologram. A beautiful, intricate, highly articulated, wonderful hologram, but hologram nevertheless. It can all feel so arbitrary. And so a decent person may quite justifiably say, what's the point? What's the point of it all? People ask me all the time, what's the point? And I say, the point is to experience, to witness, to think and feel as truthfully and as deeply as you can. In all areas of life, that is your work, to think and feel honestly, not just to repeat the garbage from collectives, but to formulate our own very distinct impressions of the world, to refine your fabulous human instrumentation of intellect, discernment, aggression, fortitude, creativity, empathy, gentleness, love. To harness your instincts to know what is true, to move with grace and integrity. Your experiences are your treasures. If your home, your work, and your fellowship facilitate deep and truthful experiences, then you are aligning your foundations well. If they do not support and encourage rich experience of life, then you are living willfully in misalignment and disavowing your sacred spark of heavenly fire. You cast aside your own unique piece of divinity. I should know. I did it for many a year, until I changed that. When we go home at the end of our time here, our experiences are our impeccably singular and inconceivably precious gifts to the Creator. And with these gifts, the world is made anew, better, more harmony, more light, more space, more beauty in this free will experiment outside of his dominion, and yet an emanation from him. A free will experiment. Divinity emanates into truth. Truth emanates into beauty. The universally beautiful, therefore, leads to something transcendent. The more honestly and deeply we experience life, the better the world will become. Our job, our work, the thing we do, a plumber, a carpenter, an astronaut, a brain surgeon, all those things are in themselves quite by the by. Our passions, our projects, our work, our vocations, in the end, are mere capricious games, exercises, valuable exercises in self-belief, studies in the avowal of learning. In itself, I have always felt our work means very little. It is gladly, deliciously meaningless. It is never what, but always how we do a thing. Why it is what it is. How we feel, how we think, how we act. So what's the point? To experience. Our experiences of beauty, truth, exhilaration, sorrow, frailty, serenity, adoration. They constitute our sacred art. To experience well, we must become a clear channel, a clean vessel that can receive the most profound elements of the world, to attain goodness so we may be filled with life. Only truthful living can bring this into being. When we become a clear vessel, soul flows inward. Soul inflow. Self witnesses. Soul shapes. Divinity creates.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome from the front of the airplane. I'm your captain. My name is Victor Mason. It's really early and I'm planning on singing show tunes and campfire songs the entire way down. No, I'm going to shut up. But before I do that, just let you know we're waiting for 8 passengers on a Anchorage flight that just landed. Once those folks are on board, we'll be headed out. It's going to be 2 hours and 6 minutes en route to Los Angeles. It's clear skies and 50 degrees in LA. Welcome aboard.
It has been our privilege and our pleasure to serve you. Thank you for choosing Alaska Airlines and have a great day. Welcome to Los Angeles.
We'll be on our way. A scant 4 hours and 57 minutes of flying gets us down there. They're expecting partly cloudy skies and temperature about 90 degrees by the time we land. On behalf of both of us here on the flight deck, welcome aboard.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Liberia, Costa Rica. At this time, remain seated with your seatbelt securely fastened into the cabin and soft fasten seatbelt sign. That will be your one and only indication is safe enough to get up in the bottom of the cabin. Please use caution while
This is the sound of midnight. on the western shore of the Costa Rican jungle. The sky is black, and the stars are the whitest I've ever seen. Everyone is asleep. They go to bed early here. And this is a moment in my life never repeated. Totally singular. And I share it with you. It's not always clear when I'm making these recordings what you can hear, but you may be able to hear the ocean in the distance. A roar. It sounds like a road, but there's no roads within hours of here. And I'm stood over a pool of water, and in the pool I can see the stars reflected, and over the pool bats are flying back and forth. And here comes the breeze. Sounds like rain, but there is no rain. That's the leaves moving. And then the breeze passes. Well, it is continuing to cack down. And here we are, safely secreted away in a disused military base. But you don't mind, dear. We can bring this place some good juju. In case there never was any here. Who knows? And as I stand here looking out of a turret where I can see Coast Guard boats zooming in the distance, I can see seagulls flying, it is nice to bring our channel here for a moment. A long time ago, when I was a young man, I worked as a legal clerk in a law office in Manchester, England. It was an okay sort of first job, you know, to get some experience of people and law, of course, and life and politics and administration and commerce, that kind of thing. I couldn't do it now. I'd blow my brains out. But at the time, it was a good initiation. So for a few years, there I was, cloistered in this dusty garret, high up in an old Victorian building, surrounded by what would now be considered antique desks, sort of battered metal filing cabinets and the last wave of typewriters, and masses of documents in various stages of decomposition, from new, crisp, white reams of legal paper to yellowing scrolls with blood-brown ink bleeding through from 100 years ago. The old and the new, side by side. So in my department one day, the mature lady who ordinarily managed the whole thing left for good quite suddenly. And I was at once given the extra responsibility of dealing with hundreds, thousands perhaps, of cases of uninsured motorists who'd gotten themselves into crashes. And for a time, I had to figure out the whole thing by myself. And the other lawyers, who were far more qualified, of course, and experienced, couldn't be bothered because it was such a low-level bullshit procedural job. So I got stuck with it. And they were always kind of too busy to help. So I felt like I was quite alone with this stuff. Rather serious stuff as well. Rather a substantial responsibility for me at this young age. And many of the cases, as I say, were very procedural in nature, in that there were stages of various court proceedings and responding documentation, time limits, investigations, summonses, judgments, agreements, schedules of payment, and all sorts of bloody things. And as I say, to a young guy, I was 19 when I was there, it was a lot to take in, a lot to do, and I had to keep track of it all. And these cases, these files, would literally pile up. Dozens of cardboard file folders, filled with assorted documentation, would arrive every day. And they would pile up in my in tray on my desk. And some days that pile was 2 foot high. It was like a test of stress management. And then one day, a man arrived. A man 20 years my senior, who was an independent solicitor, lawyer, just working on a short-term contract on some probate matters. Probate being legal matters relating to wills and managing someone's estate after they've died and so on. And due to the shortage of space in the building, he was given a desk near me. And we'll call this man Alan. Over a few days, Alan observed me stressing out with this mammoth tower of files. These blue and green cardboard folders, chock full of proceedings and handwritten letters and urgent court documents and whatnot. All of which I had been tearing my hair out over, trying to process them and deal with the seemingly ever-increasing backlog. Ugh. And the guy eventually came over to my desk, Alan, and he said, "Are you all right? You seem to be cursing and struggling a bit here." And I said I was okay, but I wasn't. So he went back over to his desk and got on with his work. But it didn't take very long, maybe later that same day, before he came back over to me and said, "Look, do you mind if I offer a suggestion that'll make your work much easier?" We'll have to pause for one moment now while we teleport into my car. And I was so exasperated that I just said, please do help. I'm bloody cracking up here. And he walked over to the large pile of files on my desk, picked up the whole stack in his arms, walked across the room and went into a sort of walk-in closet, put the files down on a shelf inside, walked out and then shut the closet door. And he walked back over to me, looked me in the eye and said, you know what the secret of life is? One thing at a time. And he had indeed left one file in my in-tray. One file. One thing to deal with. And we worked through that file together. Even though it wasn't his job, nothing to do with what he was doing. And it took us about 25 minutes. And we satisfactorily processed that file and put it in the out tray, which an archiving lady collected at the end of the day. And Alan then went back to the filing closet afterwards, took one more file out and put it on my desk, and he said, "Do you want to have a go at that one on your own?" And I did, and it was okay. Somehow easier. I felt more confident, less stress. And he said, "We're not pretending that the other files don't exist. They do. We know we need to get to them, and we will. But we don't need to stare at them. We don't need to worry about them. Imagine the future workload. That does not help. It makes things, in fact, harder. Just deal with one thing at a time. One file at a time. Carefully, properly, and then move on to the next one thing." And it worked. And I never had a problem again in that office. Not there, nor in any other jobs where I had a lot of work to do. I occasionally forget, of course, just like everyone else, and may get momentarily frazzled by the thought of the enormous complexity of the tasks ahead. But then I remember, it's just that. The thought of the tasks ahead. That's what causes the pressure, not the thing itself. The thought, the imagined, is what brings pain, not the work itself. And also, as we mature, we look at the work and think, who gives a shit anyway? What does any of it truly matter in the grand scheme of things? It does not matter a jot. It's not the thing, it's the exercise that matters. Not the work, the exercise, the game of self-belief. And so, as it happened with Alan, in the space of a year or so, we both left that law office in Manchester and went on to do other things, went our separate ways. But we kept in touch and developed a friendship and have remained friends for all these years. And I remember one day, many years ago now, but one day, I recounted this whole tale to Alan about the tower of files and the closet, one file at a time, and the whole story. And I said, "Do you remember telling me that? Because it had a wonderful influence on my life. It was very important to me. It really helped me. I'll never forget it. Do you remember that?" And he said, "No." He didn't remember this massive, incredible, life-teaching wisdom that he'd shared with me. He didn't remember. As we have observed before here, one never knows quite the impact of our heartfelt wisdom on others. We just never know. I love music. Music really came alive for me about the age of 10, something like that. That was the time when I realised that most of the pop music that I heard on the TV and radio was rubbish. And I discovered, joyously, that there was a whole other world of music, a whole other dimension of incredible compositions and performances and ideas visions, moments shared. In classical, in jazz, in ambient, electronic, rock, metal, all kinds of excellent stuff. And this was back in 1982-ish, so obviously pre-internet. So the way I found good new music was through surfing the radio stations, through browsing through old record shops, and of course getting recommendations from discerning friends. And then when I was about 14 or 15, I discovered the joy of live music. And I've heard lots of kinds of music live, all of which I have very greatly enjoyed, but it is the genre of metal, metal, M-E-T-A-L, pronounced very differently depending on where you are, metal that I love first and foremost. And I've had the distinct privilege to experience some of the greatest metal bands of all time, playing the most beautiful, fantastic, virtuoso music moments like this. And this. And this. And not forgetting this. And dozens of others, all of which I could play you for 15 hours non-stop, back to back. And some of you will jump for joy, and some of you will turn it off and think, what on earth is he talking about? It's very personal, isn't it? Very personal. Some people love avant-garde jazz, some people love death metal, some people love J-pop, some people love industrial, all kinds of tastes. And those moments that I just shared with you, I have heard firsthand, stood in front of the musicians as they played it, obviously, watched their fingers on the fretboard, watched the drumsticks pound the skins, the sweat drip down the microphone, to feel the chemistry, the electricity in the room, the mind and heart immersed in the performance. And as concert goers will know, something very magical happens when good people play good music live. Something more than just the notes and the words and the sound. Something else arises. Something transcendent. An experience that binds the very divergent expressions of spirit together for one tantalizing moment. A gift that is often quite beyond the musicians that channel it. But they open themselves to the higher power through surrender. Intuitive surrender to the aggression, the splendor, the desire, the immediacy of being. We mystical philosophers, you and I, we are given to examine the emanation of divinity in all the nooks and crannies of life. Not just in old books and in the phenomena of deep delved places, but also in the vibrant music of life. What transcendent music do you love? Why does it rise above the ordinary? How does it make you feel? Just teleported back here, back to a different area of the base, which was constructed in 1908. I see on the sign outside. So kind of old for American standards. A little while ago I was walking along a waterfront here in a lovely little harbour town on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington, and it was a beautiful day. Clear blue skies, sunshine, a gentle breeze, about 70 degrees, just perfect for me really. And there were quite a few people milling around, walking along the bayside path, leaning on the white railings and gazing out into the clear ocean, watching the birds, the seals, the boats moving in and out, and just taking in this marvellous scene. And the seals, the harbour seals, are a real joy to behold. All around the Pacific Northwest, very charming and endearing creatures, very playful, gorgeous animals really, I love them very much. And this particular day, one of the seals was hunting for fish in the bay, swimming and diving through the blue water. And this family came along, mum and dad and 2 kids, and one of the little girls rushed to the railings and shouted, "Look, Daddy, a seal! Look, quickly!" And her loud, shrill voice, of course, in her excitement, scared away the seal, who then dived down into the water and was never seen again. And the father said, sarcastically, "Good job, Caitlin. You scared it away shouting like that. Good job." And the little girl withered down into this glum, small shape, like a rag doll, and her sad face stooping downward, and her elation crushed. And the mother said nothing, and the other sibling was too young to know what was going on. And so they all slowly proceeded along the bay, looking very defeated indeed after that. And I thought to myself, great job, Dad. Great job. Well done on dissuading your daughter from expressing her joy openly. Jarring a young mind into smothered silence. And I felt, in my intuiting of his being, this had happened many times before with this family. I saw in the dad's eyes a wretchedness and scorn, a bitterness at the predictable grind of his own unmagical life. And he went about imposing his cynicism on whoever he could control, like his daughter. When she shouted, "Look, Daddy, a seal! Look, quickly!" He could have reflected for one moment, the father, and then said, "I know. Isn't it wonderful, Caitlin? A beautiful animal. And seals can be very shy too. So next time when we see one, let's be very quiet and see how close he'll come to us, so we can enjoy him even more. But yes, what fun it is to see that animal at all. Well done." Conscious communication. Now I know sometimes people just get tired and do stupid stuff. They're just over it. And I am not a parent. So maybe Dad was just having a bad day. Maybe it was a rare crap dad moment. But I don't think so. There were a dozen little revealing signs in how he walked, in the tone of his voice, the energy that surrounded him, in what he wore, in the way his wife reacted to his words and motions, in his eyes, in his shoulders, in his gait. Everything spoke of a man resigned to disappointment and disturbingly insensible to the gravity of his parenting responsibilities. It may seem like a small thing to some people, but I shall not forget the shrinking form of Caitlin. And that was her name as well. That's the name that was used. And whenever I come across a young lady like that, I shall give her every encouragement to express her joy however she wishes, to let it out, to shout and scream and dance and laugh, and scare things away if necessary. And then a little later, to offer kind guidance in skillfully shaping responses, so she may see more of the world in her quiet gladness, of course, but always throughout teaching her that her volcano of enthusiasm is natural. Boy, that wind's picked up. Shouldn't be blowing our microphone too much because I've sheltered in a overhanging ledge with a wall on one side of me, and the rain has died down to a little drizzle. But it's green and lush, and the sky is bright, and the animals are happy, and so am I. Speaking of children, if you have kids, you owe them your love, your support, your wisdom for the rest of your life. If you don't have kids, you don't owe anybody anything. You owe your parents nothing, your siblings nothing, your spouse nothing, cousins, friends, colleagues, nothing at all. you may choose to act in kindness and to give generously of your time and resources and spirit, and to be a strong and loving support to those you treasure. I do, I'm sure you do too. But it's a choice, not a question of duty, loyalty, obligation. It is a choice. No pressure. Responsibility only ever goes downward. Downwards from parent to child, not upwards from child to parent, not sideways, only downwards to what you create. Oh, look at the wind, goodness me. Oh boy. Come to another part of the base in a larger room. If your parents were fabulous wise elders with excellent enlightened counsel, radiating unconditional love, just stellar beings who conceived you and raised you in total consciousness, who brought you into the world through a joyful, intentional, profound choice to deliver a new being into the earth, then you may feel a certain responsibility. But how many parents do you know who fit that bill? And still, even in that excellent situation, you may choose to help and support and love in accordance with the splendid relationship you have with your parents, as they made this gargantuan effort to get to know you, to understand you, to be your friend, to guide you in all modes of life. And with such people, wouldn't it be natural to feel a certain responsibility? But those very same people would tell you you have zero obligation. They owe you everything. You owe them nothing. And that is precisely the way it should be. Perfect harmony. In my mid-20s, I considered equality to be a rational concept, devised by people who maybe today you'd call humanists, who wanted to achieve greater social parity, this being regarded as a fundamental characteristic of an enlightened society. Fair enough. But as time passed, and I learned more about the veiled policies of global governance, I realised something wasn't quite right. I also regularly observed that the banner of equality was being waved sort of most vigorously of all by the very stupidest of politicians and activists and educators and celebrities, people of low character and quite ignorant of the real ways of the world. After years of contemplating and road testing the nature of equality, I, for myself, have come to the conclusion that it does not exist. I see no evidence for a state of equalness anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the natural kingdoms of animal, mineral, vegetable. Nor do I see it demonstrated in the deeds or character of friends, family, colleagues, allies. No one. I cannot find it in art, literature, music, science, engineering, war, spirituality, philosophy. I can't find it anywhere. In fact, I see the very opposite everywhere. Natural unequalness. It is very clear that the contemporary ideology of equalness is being used to acclimatize people to the doctrines of collectivism. Collectivism really is just giving the group priority over the individual. The political philosophy of centralized social and economic control. Centralized power structures deciding what's best for everyone else. And from the mid to late 1800s, collectivist philosophy, the fake ideologies of equality, have been slowly introduced into our education systems to a point where now all mainstream schools forcefully diminish individualism and promote collectivism. Everyone conditioned to favour group uniformity over individual distinction. When I listen to the dangerous absurdities that are being instilled in young minds in school and college, I get angry, really fucking angry. Hearing of the vile nonsense being taught in most elementary schools, most high schools, most colleges, and I mean 90+% most. I am amazed how the creep of collectivism has come upon us. Today, to dare to suggest that something is superior or inferior risks social exclusion or jail. For me, there are lots of things that don't exist. Equality, racism, hate speech, privilege. And then branching out from these things are all the imperial control words that are embedded now in the media. Words like discrimination, diversity, hate speech, profiling, bias, prejudice, microaggression, restorative justice, civil rights. All bad things masquerading as good things. Trojan horses. A poison hiding in the vaccination. And ironically, collectivism is a cult of selfishness. A cult for egocentric, self-absorbed people who cannot imagine that other people think, feel, and live in different ways. They want to impose their personal choices on everyone else. Persuade everyone that their way is the only way. You can see it in the different attitudes to everyday occurrences in life. For example, if an individualist is a vegetarian, he doesn't eat meat. If a collectivist is a vegetarian, he wants all meat products banned for everyone. If an individualist is a non-believer, he doesn't go to church. If a collectivist is a non-believer, he wants all mention of God and religion silenced. If an individualist is homosexual, he just calmly leads his life. If a collectivist is homosexual, he demands legislated respect. If an individualist winds up homeless on the street, he thinks about how to better his situation. If a collectivist winds up on the street, he wonders who is going to take care of him. If an individualist doesn't like guns, he doesn't buy one. If a collectivist doesn't like guns, he wants all guns outlawed. If an individualist decides he needs healthcare, he acquires the resources to make that happen, chooses a job that provides it, shops for the right healthcare for him. If a collectivist decides he needs healthcare, he demands the rest of us pay for his. If an individualist immigrant, like me, comes to a new country, he assimilates to the culture, learns the language and customs, becomes an asset to society, and then lives his life. If a collectivist immigrant comes to a new country, he ignores the customs, demands the country change to suit his old culture, contributes nothing, and then applies for government aid. In the end, an excellent community can only be composed of excellent individuals. If someone has not learned the truth and art of their own individual life expression, their own high conduct, their own balanced composure, then their contribution to a community is zero. They choose not to elevate themselves, not to aspire. They forfeit the singular divine path and choose instead to be a robot. So the collectivist may mechanically join a campaign, join a church, join a political party, a movement, but when their own self-knowledge is weak, when their own expression of individual excellence is undeveloped, then they are nothing but slaves to the leaders of that campaign, that church, that political party, that movement. They serve only as conduits of empire. We, in ourselves, cannot know what is best for anyone else. We can barely know it for ourselves. So, what authority can know whether or not I should speak of certain subject matters? Whether I should discriminate and judge as I see fit? What authority can tell me what is best to eat and drink? What authority can determine whether or not I should carry a weapon? What authority is wise enough to guide my moral life? What authority can I have absolute faith in? Only one: me. And it is through the ongoing spiritual cultivation of me that I find my pathway to a higher authority, to God. Ultimately, it is His will that flows through us all. Wherever we are from, whatever our creed, whatever our beginnings and circumstances, we are always free to transcend. Always at liberty to embrace the endowment of our individual brilliance and singular distinction. Always free to make ourselves better. To become a beacon of strength. To think, feel and act honestly in all matters. To know the difference between right and wrong. To speak with integrity. To destroy what is false. To uphold what is true. To do these things is to honour life. To not do them, to swap the individual path for the robot path, and to just parrot whatever mainstream imperial culture, religion and scientism dictates, is to reject soul inflow. To refuse life. To turn away from the Creator. It is our determination, our free and powerful judgment. Go with the program, or go your own way.
Your wisdom has forged this ring. Hereafter, so that we remember our bonds, we shall always come together in a circle to hear and tell of deeds good and brave. I will build a round table where this fellowship shall meet, and a hall about the table, and a castle about the hall.
I shall not be back, but something will.
Is she alright?
Is she all right? All she has to do all day long is eat, sleep, lay the occasional egg, and listen to Mozart. Of course she's all right.
Excuse me. Could you put that down, please?
Why, what's wrong with it?
Never mind that. Can I have your names, please?
Richie? These are my friends that you said I could invite. Spudgun and Dave Hedgehog.
Black History Month you find ridiculous. Why? You're going to relegate my history to a month? Oh, come on. What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? No, well, come on. Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay. Which month is Jewish history?
There isn't one.
Oh. Why not? Do you want one?
No.
No. All right. I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history.
How are we going to get rid of racism?
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. I know you as Mike Wallace. You know me as Morgan Freeman. Where were you born?
Me?
Yeah.
Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Baton Rouge General Hospital.
There you go. Louisiana. I was born in Memphis, Tennessee. I had a long haul from where I came from to here, but here we are. So the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and here we sit at the dining table.
But it's hard to, when you say that to some people, because they say, oh, there you go with a pull yourself up by the bootstraps thing, and, you know, you're just being respectable. Not everybody can do that.
Well, everybody can. Courage is the key to life itself. There are a lot of people who are born in situations where they say, I'll never get out of this. So they won't. I say to people who say, well, I would like to have done so and so and so. So well, you could have done it. So, well, I couldn't get out of here. Man, the bus runs every day.
Well, I went down to the end of my garden. To eat my toast by the pond. I saw a winged creature dart from behind your shed. Under your washing line and into my garden. It was followed swiftly by another winged creature. And as these two creatures frolicked in the sky,
yes,
I could hear beautiful music. Like tinkling bells.
I see.
They were fairies, John. I'm telling you.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Romecast. Neil Kramer loves you. You heard clips from the following. Dialogue from Agatha Christie's Poirot. The intro song, Analogic Part 1, by Forted Ellis. The outro song, Mind Spacing, by Forted Ellis. The song, Master of Puppets, by Metallica. The song, Raining Blood, by Slayer. The song, The Last Baron, by Mastodon. The song, Deliverance, by Opeth. Dialogue from Excalibur, The Devil Rides Out, Pie in the Sky, Bottom, an interview with Morgan Freeman, and John Shuttleworth's Open Mind. If you liked any of those clips, support the artists and go buy their stuff. That's all for now. See you again soon. Until then, we wish you a beautiful day.